Hey, you guys, I want to welcome you guys back to the official season 3. We're literally, I'm so shocked, you guys. I mean, I put so much work into this, so I'm like, when I tell you guys, I'm like really, really, really shocked that we've made it to the third season. I mean, I am really shocked. Um, but I want to basically this episode is welcoming those who are new. If you haven't heard of Indian, there's always a Disney God, or if you haven't heard of me, period, we're just gonna be talking about me this episode. So one, this podcast, let's just put it all together. One, this podcast basically is about mainly we discuss everything, honestly. I'm just gonna be really honest with you. We discuss basically anything and everything. And it can be, it's a lot, but it's definitely we definitely talk about every and anything in this podcast. Um Now let me give you some examples when I talk about every and anything, because that doesn't necessarily mean every and anything, but it does mean it at the same time. Now I usually talk about like mostly TV shows. That's what I usually base the my podcast around, is talking about TV shows. But sometimes I go off topic, with some different topics. That's literally why it's called Disney Guy, because I'm a Disney fan. I love Disney. That's like, and Disney owns Marvel and ABC and all these other, companies that they, own. Um, and that's why my podcast is called Disney. In the end, there's always a Disney guy. Um, but altogether, I just want to welcome you to this podcast if you're new. I always make it clear that if you guys have um, any like suggestions about like what I should what things I should talk about, basically I always tell people to just let me know. Go to my website disneyguy.com or disneyguy.tk. Both are the same. And I tell you guys to just, tell me what to talk about. Give me ideas to discuss or things that you want me to talk about and discuss. I have no issue with discussing those things. But what I also, like about this podcast is that it's for everybody. It's for teens, it's for kids, it's for grown-ups, it's for adults. It's basically because I'm a teen. This podcast is like my, what's the word I can use for it? This podcast is like my, it's kind of like my place where I just go to escape, to be honest with you. And I just love to discuss, everything with you guys. And I just like to talk about, every and all things that I've seen and that I've watched and that that I like to talk about. I just, I focus them into this podcast. Um, but I know you guys, like I said, I know you guys have well, first of all, let me get to who I am. I am known as Disney God. Um, um, and I used to have a YouTube channel a long time ago. I mean, 2017. It was called Kenneth the Man. I changed it a couple of times, and I forgot what I changed it to after that. But I remember one of the names being changed to was Disney God. That was the only name I remembered. Or yeah, Disney God. And before I started getting more advanced at my social media presence, um, I was creating videos, uploading videos like All American clips and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my channel was taken down because of copyrighted content, of course. So I was so upset. I was just in shock when I found out. And I remember I reached 1K subscribers. And I was just so shocked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that my channel was taken down. I was just so upset, and I didn't make content on YouTube for like years because I didn't know what else to do. And that's when I entered I think 2-3 years probably after, probably like, matter of fact, when I started high school. Now that I think about it, it was when that was like two, three, yeah, let me see. Yeah, that was 3 years. 3 years, that's when I came back with this podcast. At first, I was on my website about.disneyguy.com. You guys remember that website? About.disneyguy.com. I was putting episodes on there. That was just too much. The podcast was easier for me to manage. Um, and so after, um, I was just so, I don't know, I was like, just, I was still so in shock. You know, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, well, um, I was like, basically, um, after I started, figuring out what I wanted to do with this podcast, that's when I started, making episodes and stuff back to back. And when I first started the podcast in the first season, you guys remember I was making episodes like back to back. Like if it wasn't day after day, it was 2, 3 episodes a day, which is why it got like 55 episodes within 2 months. um, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really have a schedule or a based plan on how I wanted the podcast to roll out. Um, I was still kind of new to it, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, and that's when I said, okay, I'm going to um, uh, create a schedule. And that's when in the second season, I announced after the first season ended, um I announced that well, what did I announce? I announced the premiere date of season 2, right? Okay, so I announced the premiere date of season 2, but how I did it was, um when I finally set a plan of how I was gonna do the podcast. I'm basically doing the podcast like a TV show, basically. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by that. If you guys know a TV show, TV shows set premiere dates, right? And that's why. And well, let me explain why. This podcast is sort of like a TV show. So, like I said, when I first started the podcast, I was pretty lost on how I was gonna do things and how I was gonna set up things. And when I first after season 1 ended, like I said, and I announced the season 2 premiere date, I finally set out how I was going to do things with the podcast. Basically, set it up as a TV show. If you don't know how TV shows run, basically, TV shows set a premiere date. They obviously got to film before the premiere date, and they go on like mid-season breaks and stuff like that. Um, and so that's how I set it up the podcast. I set a premiere date, when we got close to the half mark of the season, like towards like episode 22, 23, I said okay. And then on top of that, the next month was a holiday month full of holidays: Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. So I went on the podcast went on a brief like hiatus break, and the show returned back on January 5th. So I did it exactly like a TV show would. Like, for example, like with Grey's Anatomy, I talked about Grey's Anatomy a lot. When Grey's Anatomy went on their mid-season break, I wouldn't really call it a mid-season break, sort of like a definite hiatus because of COVID, but they went on like a sort of mid-season break. But usually mid-season breaks last like 2, 3 months. I mean, it was my podcast's break was like 2 months and a half, or a month and a half. It wasn't really that long. It was like 30 something, 35 days, or 40 days to the most. But basically, the whole point was I was just when I finally figured out the plan, I was like, okay, great. Finally came up with how I was gonna do this, and I did it, and that's how I went about it. Um, but I don't know. It was definitely a lot. It was definitely a lot, for me, and it was when I like I said when I first came about it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like still in shock, about what I wanted to do in this podcast. It was a lot, obviously. And when I finally figured out what I was gonna do, how I was going to do it, it just took me, some time to catch a grasp on it. And like I said, it was a lot for me to definitely deal with, obviously. But when I finally, caught a hold of how I wanted to do everything, I did. And it was perfect. And that's why I like this podcast. And I'm going to keep it going as long as I want it to go. Um, I love talking about TV shows and, real world topics. And I love discussing them with you and discussing my life or what I've been through with you guys. It's fun. And it's just amazing to just talk about these things with you guys. I definitely work hard to keep the content going. I do my best, and I just want to continue doing the best. Hopefully, like I said, it is a lot. I'm not gonna lie, it's like a lot. But I've definitely catched the grasp of doing it. If you guys know what I mean, I mean, it is a lot still, but I've definitely like catch the grasp of understanding how I want to do things in this podcast. Um, like I said, I do it all for you guys. I definitely am still upset that my YouTube channel was taken down because I literally like hit 1K and I was like so excited. It was definitely very irritating. And um I don't know. I was just very happy to start this podcast. But yeah, I hope you guys are happy entering in this new season. I hope you enjoy this new season. Because we have so much that we're gonna talk about, Marvel wise, ABC wise, everything wise. But yeah, I do really hope you enjoy. And yeah, make sure you follow this podcast and so you can get updated on all the podcast platforms that it's streaming on, that this podcast is streaming on. And yeah. Oh, make sure you go check out DisneyGuy.com and you already know this, or .tk, and subscribe to my blog. And yeah, thank you guys so much. And bye-bye, guys.